Welcome to the POD We are back, the Pride of Detroit podcast for all your Detroit Lions coverage that you are looking for. We are on Stitcher. We are on not SoundCloud. We're on Apple Podcast. We're on what else, Ryan? What am I missing?
Spotify, baby.
Spotify, and as of last week, YouTube. We're not streaming live to YouTube, but if you want to catch us on video, where you can at least see my face. Ryan is, again, going through some webcam issues. And if you don't know what Twitch is, or you don't care what Twitch is, which is the platform that we stream live on, you can watch a rerun of us on YouTube now. I don't have the link, but just search Pride of Detroit on YouTube. You'll find it, and you'll find some old episodes and our newest one, the one that we are recording as I speak right now. My name's Jeremy Reisman. I'm the managing editor of PrideOfDetroit.com, the interim coach of this PODcast, and you already heard from him because I already let him speak, because that's how this works. Ryan Matthews is with us. That's at Ryan_POD. Ryan, thanks for joining us tonight, bud.
Oh, thank you. Am I allowed to speak for a second time, sir?
I'll allow it. You know what? If you even got a third one, I'll let you go in right now.
Oh, I'm happy to be here. We're going to talk about training camp today.
We are, and it's gonna be a duo podcast tonight. So get ready for a lot of us. If I permit Ryan to speak more, we'll see. Depends on what he has to say. But yeah, we're gonna talk a lot of training camp because based on happenings that are literally ongoing as we speak right now, it does seem like they are going to come to some sort of agreement between the NFL and the NFLPA. The latest news, and I don't want to get too much into the news because there's a good chance by the time this is released that things may have changed. But the latest domino that appears to have fallen is that the preseason is probably not going to happen. The NFL apparently offered up 0 preseason games to the NFLPA, which is something they were looking for the entire time. There's also potential daily testing and all sorts of stuff that the NFLPA was looking for. So it does look like training camp is going to happen and happen very soon. The beginning of training camp is supposed to start the 28th, and whether that means practices or just conditioning early on is something that we'll see down the line. But we want to talk about training camp in its entirety. We want to talk about the big stories, the position battles, all of that fun stuff, because it is just around the corner, and I'm actually getting pretty excited about it. I was pretty, I would say, pessimistic about the chances of everything, but it does look like at least they're going to give this a go. So why not be excited about it, right, Ryan?
Yeah, why not be excited about football when there's still a glimmer of hope?
Yes, exactly. I think maybe that's what it is. Like, we have to get excited for it now just in case it's taken away from us later.
Yeah, exactly. So one other interesting thing that you touched on there was the daily testing. And the daily testing is something that they'll have in place until the positive test rate falls below 5%, and then they'll start doing every other day.
Right.
So it sounds like, and the only reason I mention that is because it sounds like the NFL is finally starting to put together some sort of plan, which is something that we've all kind of been waiting for. Like, are they going to try to do their own little bubble? Because today, the NBA announced that every single one of their players is COVID negative.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, we talked a little bit about how a bubble would be nearly impossible for an NFL season, but it sounds like the NFL is finally starting to put some pieces of the puzzle together to try to have a season.
Yeah. And hopefully they can make it through. Hopefully they can have all those negative tests once everyone starts reporting. But to kind of transition into today's topic, it is training camp preview, but we're going to focus specifically on the offense this week, and then next week we'll get to the defense. And if something major happens between then and now, maybe we'll do an emergency podcast. But for now, we're doing the training camp preview. We're starting with the offense because, let's be honest, it's probably a little more exciting when you look at how this team is built. And with this first segment, we're going to focus on the skill position players because I think the offensive line may need its own entire segment on all of the happenings there. So let's just go down the roster. Let's start with the obvious beginning point and start with quarterback, where I don't think there is really much question about where the depth chart lays. But there is one key question that we're going to have to find out between now and the start of the regular season, and that is whether Lions keep 2 or whether they keep 3. So Chase Daniel is the obvious backup. Matthew Stafford's the obvious starter. But what to do with David Blau? Does he make the 53-man roster? Should he make the 53-man roster? Is he good enough to make the 53-man roster? All of those are big questions, Ryan. What are your initial thoughts on it?
Well, is there enough room for David Blau on the 53-man roster when you consider the state of flux that I think the offensive line is in? And we'll talk about that in a minute, right? So
yeah.
I don't think that we should be dismissive of the fact that the Lions did trade to get David Blau last preseason. In his limited time that he played last season, he looked like he could be a potential NFL backup, but the Lions went out and they decided to get somebody who they deemed to be an upgrade. And like you said, Chase Daniel is without a doubt the backup quarterback of the Detroit Lions. I don't know if I see them keeping 3 guys. Maybe they try to take David Blau to the practice squad, but would he even stick around? I think another team would be quick to snatch him up.
Yeah, it's always tough to predict those sort of things, right? Like I know with a lot of like 6th and 7th round picks, we
did this with Jake Rudock,
yeah,
right?
we did do this with Jake Rudock. They're like, oh, he's going to get snatched up immediately, and then they don't. I'm not saying that certainly happens, especially with the quarterback position. So I would say there's certainly a chance that David Blau, that's the reason why the Lions traded for him, right? They were concerned that that if the Browns would have cut him, someone would have snatched him up on the waiver wire before them. So they trade for him for basically nothing. So yeah, I think, and it's tough because last year they kept 3 quarterbacks, but those 3 quarterbacks at the time were Josh Johnson and David Blau. And so there wasn't a key backup. And so there wasn't a clear backup. Now there is a clear backup.
Right.
And so I think there's a good chance they only go with 2 this year.
Yeah, and like I said, I think it's really predicated on the fact that there is a lot of uncertainty at some other positions we're going to talk about today. So the Lions may want to prioritize depth at those positions versus something that they see as a solidified starter in Stafford, a solidified backup in Chase Daniel.
Yeah, and I think one thing to keep in mind in the back of our mind when we talk about all these like potential cuts and 53-man rosters is also how that's a fluid situation, right? Like we don't know how the rosters are going to change with potential COVID rules and maybe they give roster exemptions to a 3rd or 4th quarterback just because you're going to need a healthy quarterback at some point if the pandemic hits the quarterback room. So just something to keep in mind in the back. Like we're operating right now as if the 53-man roster is the rule and nothing in that sense is going to change, but it very well could.
Oh, yeah.
All right, let's move on to running backs, where I think there's a couple of key battles in this one. Let's just start with the obvious, the headliner, so to speak. Who comes out on day 1 with the first team? Is it Deandre Swift right away, or is it Kerryon Johnson?
I think this is probably, I don't know, aside from some things on the offensive line, which are truly up in the air, I think this is going to be the most interesting camp battle between Kerryon and Deandre Swift. I foresee Kerryon being the guy right out of the gate just because he is the veteran. He is the player that until he gets like surmounted, like it's going to be Kerryon getting the majority of the first team reps, but I think you're going to see Swift in there an awful lot. So, we talked about at the top too, like getting rid of the preseason. That's going to be a really interesting scenario that's now going to have to play itself out at like an accelerated rate where, and I don't know, all this talk could be for naught because it could just be 2 guys who end up splitting carries. Who cares if it's, Kerryon Johnson who ends up getting 16 starts because he is the running back that's out there on the first play of, every game that the Lions play. Not like that even really matters. So, but I think Kerryon is just going to get the veteran rub. I think he's going to be the guy who's going to be the starting running back out of the gate. What about you?
Yeah, I think you bring up that a very important point that these guys are going to be splitting carries in some sort of respect in 2020, and our over-reliance on just the word starter is probably something that doesn't really need to be something that we focus on. That being said, I will find it interesting who's there getting first team reps right at the beginning of camp. And I think you're right. I think it probably is Kerryon Johnson. The fact that the offseason has been cut so short that there's no OTAs, there's no rookie minicamp, there's no regular minicamp, means a lot of these rookies' development might be delayed a month or two. And so maybe those guys that we projected as week one starters right away, whether it's Jeff Okudah, whether it's some of the other guys we're going to talk about on offense here, Jonah Jackson, Logan Stenberg, maybe those guys aren't starting right away where they would have in a normal offseason. So I do think in the case of Deandre Swift, he'll start sooner rather than later. But I think if we're talking day one, it's probably Kerryon Johnson's job to start.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we have some question marks kind of deeper in the running back room too, right?
Oh, absolutely. I think the yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. I was going to say, not only do we have Ty Johnson versus Jason Huntley, who two guys who have really similar skill sets and two guys who, add some special teams ability to the roster, but I'm not even going to go so far as to say that Bo Scarborough is a lock to make the team either.
I think that's an astute observation because, you think about it, what exactly is his role on the team? Is it just like a goal line short yardage guy? If so, I don't know if that's worth a roster spot because Deandre Swift and Kerryon Johnson are both guys that aren't afraid of contact. We saw Kerryon Johnson score a couple, goal line touchdowns in his first 2 years. And yeah, there's an injury concern there, but in terms of like physical play style, I don't really see, how many carries are we talking Bo Scarborough gets if DeAndre Swift and Kerryon Johnson are both on the roster and both splitting carries as RB1 and RB2?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And I think another point to take into consideration too is this team is going to probably roll out some pretty heavy formations. And I mean that in the terms of maybe like two tight ends, a fullback. It's really going to matter the guys that are up front versus the guy who's running the football on the goal line. Sure. And I think that maybe if it's 1996, it's really cool to have a guy like Bo Scarborough who can be a short yardage running back, but we're not too far removed from the LeGarrette Blount experiment.
Yeah, true. And then, that's the thing. Like the last 2 seasons, they've really gone into training camp thinking that we've got our power back, and neither time, CJ Anderson being the other one, didn't work out. And so Bo Scarborough kind of enters that same equation now. And I don't really see a point because in those previous instances, those guys were RB2. Those guys had a clear RB1 and then it was them and they still couldn't cut it. Now this guy is RB3 and you have to consider is that even worth it just to have a guy with such a specific role when you got guys like Ty Johnson and Jason Huntley who are not only decent running backs, who are not only threats out of the backfield as receivers, but those are guys that also can contend for a return job on special teams. What can Bo Scarborough do outside of short yardage running? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either.
So yeah, I think that's a good point to be, and I think it's certainly possible that maybe Bo Scarborough. We talk about Ty Johnson versus Jason Huntley as like the key depth battle here, but maybe there's room for them both, especially if Scarborough isn't part of this team's plans.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, do you think it's a scenario because I don't see them keeping 5. Right. I don't see them keeping Kerryon, Swift, Scarborough, Huntley, and Ty Johnson. I think that's quite a bit because this is going to kind of dovetail into when we talk about tight ends and fullbacks and things like that. But I really only see them keeping at most 4. And maybe they might value Ty Johnson and Jason Huntley because, they can each do the same thing, but they each do it really well. In a bind or in a pinch, are you going to be able to count on Bo Scarborough to be a special teams contributor? Probably not. Right. So that's where I think the equation gets solved.
Yeah, and we can bring Nick Bawden into the conversation here because I think he deserves to be part of the conversation because you're absolutely right. I don't think there's any point in keeping 5 and a fullback, but some would argue that if they decide to go Isaac Nauta as fullback / tight end, then they could go 5 running backs and kind of just like 5.5 with a fullback that is also moonlighting as a tight end.
and that's fair. I just don't know how. I don't know where I fall quite yet in the Nick Bawden versus Isaac Nauta debate, and we'll get into that more when we get to talk about tight ends.
Well,
right?
let's jump into it now because I think it's an interesting conversation because I feel like Isaac Nauta and Nick Bawden are two very unknown commodities right now. They both essentially had their rookie season last year because Nick Bawden was on IR his actual rookie season. And then Nick Bawden got injured again last year after just kind of a so-so performance at fullback. Isaac Nauta comes in the last month or two of the season, takes over some fullback duties, does probably a little bit worse, but granted, it's not his natural position. I feel like Isaac Nauta, simply by nature of the Lions' depth at tight end, is a roster lock. The question is, do you accept Nick Bawden as a roster spot as a pure fullback and special teams guy? And it's really it's tough to say because neither of these two guys really have done their job particularly well, but that doesn't mean neither of them are capable of doing it well.
Yes, exactly. And I think the other thing too with Nick Bawden is you're kind of running into the Bo Scarborough conundrum. Mm-hmm. Like, are you going to keep a guy who's so one-dimensional, especially when you have a coaching staff and a GM who just loves the word versatility more than I love gambling? I don't know. Like so the thing is, I think that Isaac Nauta almost has a leg up just because he plays tight end. He can play fullback in a pinch. I don't know how important is a fullback going to be to this offense. I think that's the ultimate question. It's not is it going to be Nick Bawden or is it going to be Isaac Nauta? The question is how important is a fullback? Because if a fullback is absolutely imperative to Darrell Bevell's system, well, then I think I'm going to want to keep the guy who's a fullback, and I'm going to want to keep Nick Bawden.
Right. And, I mean, it's hard to say. Looking at his history, it's there. It's certainly more prominent than in some other teams. Last year, it was about 5 to 10 snaps per game, which doesn't seem like a ton. But at the same time, I think the one difference I want to bring up from Bawden and Scarborough is that Bawden is in on almost every special teams unit, or he was last year. And so there is value there that I think the Lions may consider when deciding this thing. And while I think Isaac Nauta can probably do the same special teams things, it's again a matter of experience. I think Bawden has a little bit more experience doing that. Isaac Nauta really just kind of came onto the roster late in the year, and so we're still kind of figuring that out. And yeah, we know this team is really, really trying to run the ball hard, and if that's the case, I think they're going to value fullback more so than other teams. Whether that's enough to keep Bawden or not, I don't even know. It's to me this is maybe the biggest toss up on the roster. I'm kind of all for keeping your roster spots economical, so I would lean toward Isaac Nauta getting the nod over Nick Bawden, but at the same time, I don't want to back up like an emergency fullback to be the team's fullback.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to wide receiver because, again, this is a really interesting set of wide receivers. We know the top three, and that's not going to change. We know Kenny Golladay, we know Marvin Jones Jr., and we know Danny Amendola. But beyond that, there's a lot of interesting stories. There's Quinta, the rookie, 6th-round pick, or his 5th-round pick? I always get some mixed. Late-round pick. Let's just say late-round pick because I don't always remember those sort of things. But
the coverall.
The coverall, exactly. Day 3 pick. You got Marvin Hall, who was fantastic in his, 8 catches last year, which sounds ridiculous to say, but is absolutely true. And then you got a position change, who's a phenom on special teams. Ryan, where do we start here with this wide receiver group? I don't even know where to start.
What about the veteran, Geronimo Allison?
Sure.
What about Travis Fulgham? I mean, I think that there is a lot of interesting storylines once you get past those top 3. Now, I think the Lions are in a great spot here because they do have a solidified top 3.
Yeah.
They have their 2 outside receivers and they have their slot guy. Now you start thinking about, well, if you need some depth there, you want another outside guy and you want another guy who can play in the slot. is Jamal Agnew, is he going to be groomed to be a receiver? Is Travis Fulgham ready to be that outside guy? And then really, I mean, Geronimo, Allison versus Quinta, Sivis. I think I see that as being kind of a camp battle in and of itself, because it seems like those two guys are similar in their skill set. How much do they want to see Geronimo, Allison come in here and be the big body receiver who can make catches, who isn't necessarily a great separator, which is seemingly something that this coaching staff and the general manager doesn't really prioritize as being an important trait for their wide receivers. But I mean, clearly they have a type, because Geronimo, Allison and Quinta, Cephas seem to be from the same mold. So
I would even throw Chris.
How many guys? Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I would even throw Chris Lacey into that conversation. I feel like the Lions really liked what they saw from Chris Lacey last year. He made the team and even contributed a little bit towards the end of the season. I think they like him maybe a little bit more than they like a guy like Travis Fulgham, even though they drafted Fulgham.
Yeah, maybe, and maybe Travis Fulgham spends another year on the practice squad.
Sure.
And he gets relegated to that role. But how many receivers do you think you see them keeping?
It's a good question. I think last year it was 5 or 6. I think it was 5 last year. And I mean, I see
that being the same number, right?
Yeah,
like how I explained it, like 2 outside guys, a slot receiver, and then a backup outside guy and a backup slot guy.
Right. And so, I mean, you look at the roster, that means that's going to make it really tough for a guy like Jamal Agnew to slip in there, right? Because he has to prove he's as good as a backup slot or deep threat as a guy like Marvin Hall, right? And
yeah,
I mean that's a steep...
Marvin Hall's got a resume. It's not very long.
Yeah,
but it's impressive.
Well, it's long. It's not very detailed, I guess.
Yeah.
And then
not a lot of cases.
Yeah, and then you have to imagine a guy like Quinta Cephas is got a leg up on the competition just by. I mean, I feel like a lot of people are pegging him as a potential big surprise, maybe because of the way that Jeff Okudah talked about him. You know, he was actually really, really good in college, and if he hadn't had the lost season due to all the off-season stuff or off the field stuff, he certainly could have been a higher draft pick. So, I mean, maybe again, this is all about roster economics, right? Because is Jamal? I think it all just comes down to, is Jamal Agnew worth a roster spot based mostly on a special teams value? And I go back and forth on this, because my main point against that is that special teams just isn't as important anymore. You look at the kickoff returns, there's about 1.5 kickoff returns per game and maybe 2 punt returns a game. So we're talking about 3 to 4 to maybe 5 plays a game where Jamal Agnew's out there. And I don't even think he's that great of a kickoff returner, to be honest. And the Lions have plenty of guys on the roster that are going to make the roster that could do kick return. Punt return, however, there's no one on the team that matches what he can do. And he can do something very, very special. The question is that worth a roster spot for the 2 to 4 opportunities he's going to get per game on punt return alone? And man, to me, that's very hard to really justify. Even if he's turning, those 2 to 4 attempts into a touchdown every 4th game or every 5th game or every 8th game or whatever it is, it's really hard for me to justify that.
Yeah, it is a tough thing to justify. I will say, though, if the Lions are doing a position change with Agnew, I think that shows some level of commitment to him, because I think that also shows that they're willing to do what they need to do to keep him around because they value his skill set. I think if they wanted to just keep him as a returner, they would just bring him back as a cornerback.
Sure.
They would see if he could keep that job, and then if for whatever reason they like the cornerbacks in the room and Jamal Agnew doesn't make the cut, they just get rid of him. But I think that moving him to wide receiver, I think that shows a level of commitment from the team that, hey, maybe this guy can be that gadget player on offense that Darrell Bevel's looking for, and he can also satisfy some return duties. And who knows, maybe even a pinch, he can play some cornerback if the Lions ever, get into a super desperate situation, just because he has that kind of versatility. So I want to say that Agnew almost has kind of a leg up just because of the position change. Now it's gonna be difficult for him because I mean making a position change, especially going from defense to offense, that's huge. I mean, we even talk about like, you know, guys making the change from like right tackle to left tackle, or guys making the change from guard to tackle, and it being like a huge change for them. And that's the same side of the ball that's still the offensive line. This is a guy who's going from guarding receivers to being one.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big deal.
And he's going to have the same disadvantage that a lot of rookies have, right? He didn't have OTAs. He didn't have minicamp to adjust, to do live catching with Matthew Stafford, to run routes, to be coached up as he's out there on the field. So, yeah, I think he's behind. I mean, the other way to read his position change is that the Lions decided, well, if we're going to keep this guy around, he's going to have to do something more than just a backup nickel corner.
Sure.
And he wasn't cutting it there. So I don't know. I think it's going to be challenging for him to make the roster. I really do. But at this point, it wouldn't surprise me either way.
Yeah.
All right.
For sure.
We are going to head into our first break. When we come back, we're going to continue our offensive training camp preview, and we are going to talk about offensive line, where there's a whole bunch going on and not a lot known right now. So we're going to give our thoughts when we come back on the PODcast Training Camp Edition. All right, break time, chat. Let's catch up with everything you said, including, yes, I'm wearing my mozzarella stick shirt now. Thank you, LJ. Appreciate that. Your 8,000 channel points. Snuck that in while Ryan was answering. Also, yes, chat.
I saw you smiling.
Yeah.
I saw you smiling, and I was like, what's Jeremy up to?
Also, to our subscribers, you may have noticed we have... Turn the stream off, Ryan, or at least mute it.
Sorry, I had to I had to get to the chat.
We have new emotes, everybody. Thank
Yay,
you. Oh, I was gonna ask John to give me the artist. I don't have the artist name, but John Whitaker helped us find the artist of our new emotes. I'll know them by next week. But yes, we have a bunch of awesome new emotes, including a little Lions cheer emote, including a derpy Zazu emote, and yes, Goose has got his own emote too with a big old heart.
He's got a big old heart.
He's got a big old heart.
Isn't that cute?
And I want to show you just how much I appreciate the Zazu emote, because you might not notice it, but the attention to detail is amazing. And I'm going to show you what I mean by that. So look at the coloring. This like little line in his head right here is like so detailed and so exactly what he looks like. I think that's amazing. Just like that sort of effort into it, I think, is awesome. And yeah, he's a little chubbier in the cheeks in the picture, but I think that's kind of the point. He's just supposed to look a little goofy, a little derpy. Because he's a little derpy dog. I've got a very derpy picture of him, but it didn't accentuate the coloring like this one did, which is what I appreciate. So thank you. I'm sorry I don't have your name, artist who made our emotes, but I do appreciate you. I will give you a shout out next week, I promise. And thank you to John Whitaker for helping me facilitate all that. It was a lot of those emotes were his idea about the design, and I'm not a creative person, so I appreciate any sort of help I could get, because I had been wanting emotes for a very, very long time. So if you want a chance to use those emotes, make sure you subscribe to us on Twitch. If you have Amazon Prime, you can sub to any Twitch stream for free once a month by connecting your Amazon Prime to your Twitch account. Then you hit the subscribe button. There should be a little free option for your Amazon Prime every month. Make sure you do it every month, because it doesn't resubscribe automatically. And that's the end of my little spiel.
What a crock.
Hey. BL Miller asks, Jeremy, who do you think has better stats at the end of the season, Carrion or Swift? I think it's Swift. I don't think there's any question in my mind that Swift is eventually going to be the number one guy. And I think he also offers more out of the backfield as a receiver. So if we're talking total yards, total touches, all that sort of stuff, I think it's Swift. You feel any differently, Ryan?
No, I think it's going to be Swift. Yeah.
Yeah. Any other questions before we jump back in? Let me just take a look and see what we missed in terms of chat. Ryan hasn't bought in yet. Good one. Love it. Wide receiver group has lots of battles. I agree. Who do you guys like as the backup outside guy. Who's your favorite among, like, it's probably Sivis, right? Like, I feel like most people are probably in on the rookie. But, like, Sivis, Lacey, Fulgham, Allison, which of those guys do you like? Who did I miss?
For me?
Anybody. Chat, you. We got an Allison. Oh, we forgot to talk about Hunter Bryant a little bit. Oh, well.
Oh, we didn't get to tight ends yet.
Didn't we? I mean, we kind of did, but...
Kind of. In a roundabout way.
Well, we'll kick off a little.
We can lump them in with the offensive line.
Yeah, sure. Can he play fullback too? That's a good question. I don't think he's had experience that, but I'm going to look it up really quick. Fullback. I don't think so. No, doesn't look like it. Marvin Hall should have been part of that conversation. It's tricky, though, because Marvin Hall isn't like your big-bodied type outside receiver. He's obviously like the more quick, agile. I think the key for Marvin Hall is going to be is can he do more than just be the deep ball guy, right? Because while that's fun and productive and, you know, cool to see, if he's going to like really be a part of this team, I think he needs to show he can be a little more versatile and, you know, catch some over the middle stuff. Have at least a little Golden Tate inside in him. Marvin Hall, Agnew fighting for the same role. I think that's probably fair to say. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
For sure.
Making sure you're still here.
I'm still here. I'm just looking at the Twitters because why is everybody beefing with Eric Ebron still? Can we just let that go?
I don't know. It's a great question. I even threw it out.
Can we just drop that?
Oh my god, there was so much of that on my Twitter. I just said like y'all are still beefing with Eric Ebron. Then people are like, oh, this is the only thing he doesn't drop. I was like, okay, chill, everybody.
He can't catch COVID.
Oh, God. I think the only reason it came back is because you know how like there's this meme that keeps getting passed around. It's like, name this player, and it's like the bar is full for recognition, and then the bar is low for talent and whatever.
Yeah, right.
Production or whatever. Like someone answered Eric Ebron on that, and of course they didn't just answer Eric Ebron; they had to tag him because that's what Lions fans do. Is they can't
works.
Just be an asshole to Eric Ebron. They need to know that he knows that they're being an asshole. And yeah, and then that just led to a bunch of tweets and Lions fans getting outraged that Eric Ebron liked a tweet that said all these tight ends came into Detroit and Matthew Stafford didn't make them better, apparently forgetting that Brandon Pettigrew was an actual person. But whatever. He signed with the Steelers, I believe. That's right?
Yes, that is right.
Anyways, we're not here to talk about Eric Ebron. I don't care. Yes, he's immature. Yes, he's talented. Yes, he struggled in Detroit. You can be mad that they should have drafted Aaron Donald. That's obviously not his fault though. So why are we still
talk about God?
Yeah, I'm sorry. We need to get off the Eric Ebron topic because we should be well beyond caring about that man, and not in the sense that we shouldn't care for his well-being, but like, why are we even still talking about him? Why am I still talking about it?
Can we talk about tight ends that are on the roster?
Yes. I mean, I don't know if you really want to, but seeing as you have shared your thoughts about TJ Hawkinson lately.
What if I change my mind?
Oh, well then let's get back on the show so people can hear. All right, you guys ready to jump back in?
Let's do it.
And by you guys, I mean you and chat. I need at least one affirmative from chat, just to make sure that you guys still have a pulse over there. There we go. What's affirm a hard? All right, they're ready. Give me a couple seconds, and then we'll jump in. And we are back with our training camp preview POD cast, where we're talking about the offense, the Detroit Lions offense for 2020 training camp, hopefully getting underway next week. When we last left off, we had gone through most of the skill positions. I do want to go back to tight end. We talked a little bit about Isaac Nauta. Let's talk about the rest of the tight ends there before we jump into the offensive line. We know TJ Hawkinson's going to be the starter. We know the Lions can't cut Jesse James, so he'll probably be part of the equation. The question for me is, while I mentioned earlier, I think Isaac Nauta's probably a lock. The one kind of mitigating factor here is Hunter Bryant, the undrafted rookie who, by a lot of people's measures, was one of the best undrafted guys available to the free agent market right after the draft, and the Lions were able to swipe him up. Ryan, what are your thoughts about him potentially disrupting the tight end group and maybe making a bid for the 53-man roster?
I think he's going to make the roster.
You do?
I think that I do think Hunter Bryant's going to make the roster, and I think that the Lions targeted him for a very specific reason, and that reason being his big playability.
Mm-hmm.
This was something that Pro Football Focus put out. This was a tweet they put out back in early July.
Mm-hmm.
But the most receptions of 20-plus yards by Power 5 tight ends, Hunter Bryant had 7, and he led all tight ends in college football last year of Power 5 schools. I think that that's something that the Lions probably found very attractive about his skill set, is that he's a guy who can stretch the field. He's athletic. He's a pass catcher. And I think he is what the Lions maybe hoped that Jesse James could have been, but is not. Jesse James is going to stick around. They're going to keep Hawkinson, like you said. They're going to keep Jesse James. Isaac Nauta because of his versatility. But beyond that, I mean, I don't really see any other outside of Hawkinson. I don't see any real pass catchers on the roster, like any legitimate guys. So I mean, I think Hunter Bryant has every opportunity to come in and make the roster.
So I'm assuming in your theoretical world here that the Lions are keeping 4 tight ends. That means Nick Bawden's probably gone, right?
I think that means the axe for Nick Bawden. Yeah,
interesting. I guess, and you're right to have a little hype around Bryant. I mean, also going to PFF, that they had him as a 91.7 receiving grade since 2017 and 2.9 yards per route run, which was the highest of any tight end in the 2020 class. I guess my concern, my retort would simply be that I think this team thinks highly of Jesse James still. I think they still believe he'll turn it around because the trajectory of his career before coming to Detroit was upward. He kept getting better and better and more receiving yards. I think it was mid to high 300s before he came to Detroit, and then everything kind of collapsed last season. So, maybe they are starting to prepare for life without James, but I don't even know if they can get out of his deal next year. It's probably more realistic in 2022, especially with potentially a lowering cap. But, yeah, I don't know. I don't think there's really room for 4 tight ends on the roster. I don't think it makes a lot of sense. And I do think, as coveted as he may have been as an undrafted guy, I don't think there's that much risk to cutting him and trying to stash him on the practice squad for a year.
Yeah, who knows if he could even be stashed on the practice squad. And I know we just had this whole discussion about, quarterbacks and players of value being able to be stashed on the practice squad, but I just view Hunter Bryant as being the modern NFL tight end. I think that his game is a lot like Evan Ingram's game. I think that he doesn't necessarily have the size that Evan Ingram has, but he has a big playability.
Yeah.
And I think that that's something that every NFL team covets. And I think in Darrell Bevell's system, I think him and Hawkinson would be absolute dynamite in terms of their pass catching ability. And the only reason I do think that they could keep 4 tight ends is, like you said, if one of their tight ends is moonlighting as a fullback,
yeah,
and is moonlighting as a special teams player, and that would be Isaac Nauta.
Certainly possible. All right, let's move to that offensive line. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about first what we know. We know Taylor Decker's the starting left tackle. We know Frank Ragnow is going to be the starting center. We're pretty darn sure Halapuli Vaitai is going to be the starting right tackle. I know there are some that really still believe he's going to be a guard, but I think that's nonsense. I think he's going to be a right tackle, and there's not even going to be a competition there. But the guard situation to me is very much up in the air. And the reason I say that is because usually by now we would have seen the Lions' plans for their rookies, right? We would have seen, I mean, you think about when the Lions drafted Frank Ragnow. Immediately they put him at right guard, and we knew pretty much right away he was going to be right guard his rookie season. Same with Taylor Decker. Left tackle from the minute he stepped on camp. He stayed there. That was his position that entire year and obviously beyond. Haven't had that with Logan Stenberg. We haven't had that with Jonah Jackson. The Lions are returning a bunch of guys, including Ode Abushi, Kenny Wiggins, Joe Dahl. All those guys had some time on the offensive line last year. But now we don't know. We don't know who's going to be on left. A bunch of these guys have left side, right side versatility. We don't know how COVID and the shortened offseason is going to affect their plans for the rookies, the young guys. We don't know anything. And so I guess, Ryan, my question to you is like, what do you think? Who's going to start at left guard? Who's going to start at right guard day one in training camp? That might be a different answer than week one of the regular season, but who steps out there day one, left guard, right guard?
Day one, and I'm going to fall back on my laurels, and I'm going to definitely say the same thing that I said with the running backs. I think it's going to be the guys who are veterans and who have been here. Left guard, Joe Dahl. Right guard, Ode Abushi.
Not Kenny Wiggins?
Not Kenny Wiggins.
What?
I don't think Kenny Wiggins will be the starter. It's just something I feel in my gut.
Okay.
It's something I feel in my
Interesting.
gut. I don't even know if Kenny Wiggins ends up making the team.
You're crazy. They love Wiggins.
Am I insane?
They love Wiggins. They played him so much last year, even though they shouldn't have.
But they drafted 2 guards.
They did. But
Don't
Ode Abushi was neither of those guards. Why would they value Abushi over Wiggins, though?
I don't like Wiggins.
Okay.
You asked me for my opinion. You didn't ask me what I thought the team was going to do.
Okay, fair. I don't know. Right. I don't know if that's true. I thought I said who's going to start day one at training camp.
Yeah, you asked for my opinion. You didn't ask me for what I thought Matt Patricia was going to do on his 4-wheeler. Is Matt Patricia still going to have a 4-wheeler?
I don't know. That's a good. Maybe that should be our entire topic next week. He doesn't need one anymore.
Rather than talk about the defense, let's talk about Matt Patricia's all-terrain vehicles.
That may be a more pleasant conversation, to be honest.
Let me throw a question back to you then.
Yeah.
How long until Jonah Jackson ends up cracking the starting lineup?
Day one. They traded up to get the guy. The precedent has been set. They want their starters there from the get-go. And I know this is a different offseason, and I know this is, an asterisk season, but I think Jonah Jackson starts, and my inclination is left guard, and that's going to ruffle some feathers because Joe Dahl pretty much only plays left guard, which means you're starting either Ode Abushi or the right answer, Kenny Wiggins, at right guard. And so I think it's Jackson and Wiggins to start at the guard positions from day one when we're talking left to right there.
I'm going to go to Pro Football Reference, and I'm going to have them add the right answer as a nickname for Kenny Wiggins.
No, do not. No, don't quote me on referring to Kenny Wiggins as the right answer.
He's the right answer at right guard.
But I think in an ideal situation, maybe you have Jonah on the right, Dahl on the left. But I think Jonah's a little better on the left side. He's played left at Ohio State in his last season at college. He was right guard for Rutgers. But yeah, I think he's a little more comfortable in that left guard position based on some of the tape and some of the things I'm hearing as well. So I mean it's tough. I think there are other position battles here that are interesting. Like, what about Ben Shaw? Does he have a place on this depth chart? Is he going to be the backup center? I brought that up earlier on the Pride of Detroit website because, kind of a behind-the-scenes story that I don't think a lot of Lions fans caught on to was that Ben Shaw was practicing on the scout team as a center towards the end of the year. And so I think their long-term I think that right there is them preparing for Glasgow to leave, right? They're like, oh crap, we're not going to have our backup center next year. Let's start getting Benshaw some reps in there to see if maybe he can be the backup center. His competition is probably Russell Bodine, the veteran center there.
Right.
And it's something that I don't think a lot of people are considering. Is like, this team needs a backup center. They don't have one in their starting lineup like they did before. And so I think Benshaw probably has the inside track there, but Bodine has the experience and a lot of experience. I think he started over 40 games. So that's kind of an interesting training camp battle that I think is interesting to keep an eye on. Is there any other offensive linemen that you want to maybe get a better look at before you call them either a long shot or a roster lock or anything like that?
What about Josh Garnett?
Yeah.
I think that he has a potential to stick around because last year the Lions kept 6 interior offensive linemen.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, even going into this year, they drafted 2 guys.
Yep.
So, by all accounts, I mean, let's talk about guys who we think are going to be absolute roster locks on the interior offensive line. Frank Ragnow's 1.
Yep.
Joe Dahl is 2. Jonah Jackson is 3. Is Logan Stenberg 4?
Yeah. You do. He's a, 4th round pick? Yeah.
Right.
He's in.
Kenny Wiggins.
He's a roster lock now? The right answer?
Is he a roster?
I have him as a roster lock, yes. Those are my 5. You named my 5 roster locks.
So there's 5. So then does Bo Benshaw have that kind of inside track to be the 6th guy just because he could be the backup center and he could oust Ode Ibushi? I
think so. Yes. That's how I would predict it. I would say those 5 and Bo Benshaw are your 6 guys. But I think Josh Garnett, I think Ode Ibushi and Russell Bodine are all in on that competition right now.
Oh yeah, I don't think that it's anything set in stone by any means. Also, let's dispel. I don't think it'll happen this year at all whatsoever, unless injuries force it to happen. But you will not have 2 rookie guards playing left and right guard. It will not be Jonah Jackson and Logan Stenberg.
Yeah, I think that's important to point out. I think from the get-go, I think Logan Stenberg was more of a project. I think even in a regular season, even with a regular off season, I think Stenberg's rookie season was always planned to be a learning experience, a year on the bench. I mean,
rookie season.
You talk. I mean, you hear about how that draft pick came about, and there was never a plan to grab 2 guards. He just provided an extra. I think Bob Quinn said it, like, he was just a value pick at that point. They didn't expect him to be on the board right there, and they're like, we get this mean run game mauler in the 4th round? Yes, please. And so you can tell right there their plan wasn't, oh, we need a starter right now at guard. We're just like, oh, bonus. We got this guy now. So now we can add some talent, let him develop. He played in Kentucky where they barely passed the ball, so his pass pro is probably not very polished at this point. So, yeah, have him ride the bench. I think Joe Dahl and Kenny Wiggins are good enough. They're not great, but good enough to have as a starter amidst everyone else on that offensive line. So, yeah, unless there's a severe injury among that group, I think Logan Stenberg is basically riding the pine all of 2020.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. Well said.
Mm-hmm. All right, I think the last real question with this offensive line group is at the tackle position. We know the starters in Vaitai and Decker. Now, they really only kept 3 offensive tackles last year, so that only means 1 swing tackle, and that job probably belongs to Tyrell Crosby, but I think there's one guy to keep your eye on, and it's Matt Nelson out of Iowa. So if you guys remember, Matt Nelson was a UDFA last year, coming into Detroit as a defensive tackle in college. He made the transition. He was basically on the practice squad the entire 2020 season, working on that transition. Now, I'm not here to say, like, I saw Matt Nelson at camp, he's definitely going to be the backup offensive tackle this year, but maybe he's good enough now to potentially warrant a roster spot, or, maybe unseat Tyrell Crosby. I haven't seen anything bad in Tyrell Crosby to necessitate, losing his roster spot. He's been decent in replacement, but I think Matt Nelson is an interesting storyline and maybe one to keep an eye on in training camp. Am I wrong?
No, I don't think you're wrong, and I think that the general mood even when Tyrell Crosby was drafted, was that he was going to make the transition at the next level from tackle to guard.
Yeah.
Just because he's 6'5", he's a little bit beefier. He's over 300 pounds. Somebody like Matt Nelson, that guy's 6'7", and he's kind of, I guess you would almost call him like slender because he's like 290. So he's almost more of like the modern NFL tackle build.
Right.
I just wonder if you're going to keep 6 interior offensive linemen, you're pretty solidified at that spot. So like you said, if you're going to keep one swing tackle, it's truly going to be a guy who you want to play tackle. It's not going to be a guy that I think you're going to value their positional versatility and say somebody like Tyrell Crosby, where it's like, okay, well, if we get into a pinch, we can swing him in and he can play guard or something like that. I think that they're going to have enough of that on the roster with, the 6 guys that we listed off as being potential roster locks for the interior offensive line position. So Matt Nelson, he could very well sneak his way onto the roster. And I would say right now, though, it's Tyrell Crosby's job to lose. Would you say that?
Oh, no question.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's just a name to keep an eye on as someone who may surprise you at training camp with either the reps he's getting or, his performance. I was going to say his performance in the preseason, but then clicked on probably not having a preseason this year. So that's really going to mess with, I think fans' experience of this offseason, right? They're not going to get an opportunity to see these players in training camp. They're not going to get an opportunity to see them in preseason. So when roster cuts comes, it's just going to be based on like reports from beat writers at training camp. And that's the only way you're going to be able to form an opinion as a fan, because you aren't going to see them at all. So that's an interesting thing to think about right now, because maybe roster cuts aren't going to be as exciting because you're not going to be able to formulate your own opinion based on what you saw. But I'm sidetracking ourselves. We're coming towards the end of the second segment. Let's kind of wrap things up with a couple questions about all of the offensive training camp. Let me start with this one. What do you think is the biggest storyline for the Lions offense in training camp?
Oh man, this might be a cop-out answer, but I'm going to say Matthew Stafford's health.
Oh, we didn't even mention that at the top. Yeah, talk about it.
I think that you just want to see him out there humming. Mm-hmm. You want to see him out there throwing passes with the velocity that he normally throws it with. You want to see him getting out and making throws on the run like we're accustomed to seeing him doing, because the protection usually breaks down. But I think for any Lions fan who had to go through just the torturous season that was last year, I think the biggest storyline is whether or not the team's best player is healthy and ready to go.
And that's a good point. I do think that any sort of concerns over that right now are a little, I don't know, overly exaggerated. I think maybe I'm just being naive, but I trust everyone at their word that Matthew Stafford has been 100% for months now. And also, the good news is that he's going to be wearing that red jersey for the entirety of the offseason now. He won't get touched until week 1, guaranteed pretty much. But yeah, it's definitely something that I think people are going to have an eye on when training camp opens, is just how comfortable he looks. Because, yeah, it was obviously a serious back injury, and he hasn't really been hunched over taking snaps and throwing the ball downfield. Except if you count all those, off-season training with Danny Amendola.
Yeah. I think, Jeremy, the point that I'm just trying to make is because I believe in all the reports too. It's just seeing it is a different thing than reading it or hearing about it,
Yeah, that's fair. I think my answer to the question is just the offensive line. We just spent this entire segment pretty much talking about it, but they got rid of one of their best players on the offensive line in Graham Glasgow. So how is it all going to come together now? And it's going to be important. It does seem like they're trying to make a transition to a more run-based offensive line. I want to see how that's going to work out. You're not really going to find out what it's going to look like in training camp, because any sort of running play in training camp doesn't look like anything, because not everyone is going 100%. Not everyone's trying to, kill the other person across the line. But once things start getting, fully physical, all the pads are on and starting to look like, a full head-on practice, I'm very interested to see how that offensive line is going to develop. And last question before we go to our mailbag, who is the offensive player you're most interested in watching? If you were there at training camp this year, who's the one guy you're laser focused on?
This is going to seem kind of gimmicky, but I want to see how Jamal Agnew does.
Okay, no, I'm with you.
That transition, I think that transition would just be super interesting to see. I don't mean this in a bad way, Jamal Agnew, if you're listening, but
he is.
I just want to see a player. I just want to see a player make a transition from defense to offense. I think that's just a super interesting case study.
Yeah, it would.
So it has less to do with Jamal Agnew. It has everything to do with the fact that he's making a transition from one side of the ball to the other.
Yeah, that would make for, like, if there was Hard Knocks here, that would make for a really, really interesting storyline to just, like, follow him in offensive meetings, see what it's like, the learning process, and all that sort of stuff. I think that's a great answer. Believe it or not, the guy who hates running backs the most, Deandre Swift, is my answer. I want to see what has the Lions infatuated with this guy. I want to know why they thought it was appropriate to use the third pick in the second round on him. I want to know. I want to see it. I want to see it out there. I want to be wrong. I want to be proven wrong. That's what I want to do. So I'm going to and I mean, if we're being honest, he's probably going to be the most exciting rookie the Lions have because he's going to touch the ball more than any other Lions rookie. I'm sorry, Jeff Okudah. I don't believe you're going to touch the ball, 60 times. If you do, that's amazing. You'll probably break some records. But he's going to be the most exciting weapon that the Lions added this year, and so I want to see it. I want to see what everyone's all excited about, and hopefully join in on some of that excitement. So Deandre Swift is my answer for most exciting, most interesting player on the offensive side of the ball training camp this year. That ends our training camp preview of the offense. Next week, we're going to talk about the defense and all the big changes they've made over there. But before we do any of that, we're going to head straight to the mailbag, answer some of your questions when we come back from the break. Stick with us. Yeah, that's right, Chad. I threw a curveball at the end. You didn't see that one coming. Big storyline will be the first positive test. Yeah, it could be. It will be interesting to see, and I don't know if they're doing an antibody test or just like the COVID test, or maybe they're the same thing. I'm not a medical professional, but it'll be interesting to see if they do an antibody test, how many of them had it unknowingly. Although, now I'm starting to wonder if like every single NFL player has already been tested. Like maybe their agents are like, you should just get tested just in case. I don't know. Speculating.
Just in case.
Oops, I keep messing with our picture by accident. Sorry, everybody. Boop. Anything. I disagree with Jeremy. I think left is for pass blocking, right side is for running. So Jonah initially right guard. It's possible. I mean, I think that's an over-exaggeration of what each role is, but you're right that left guard has a little more pass blocking responsibilities. The correct answer is you don't hate running backs. You hate that they are drafted before round 3. That's right, LJ. I was exaggerating my own position, just like my position with these guys over here. But yeah, you're right. Based on the timeline, they have to get COVID tested today, don't they? Or tomorrow. Tomorrow, we still haven't heard if the Lions rookies are going to start reporting tomorrow. That was the initial date, but I think I saw that the Packers are moving the rookies back to Thursday with the quarterbacks. It's all on the team. The team are well within their rights to make them report tomorrow, but at this point we haven't heard the Lions' plans, and the Lions have been very vague in their communications with the media. We got an email today that basically just said, hopefully we'll have more answers for you later in the week. D-Virgin Gang name bracket tournament. Super Lightning Puggle. I have some bad news for you. I haven't checked the poll in some time, but I'm going to move into the Sweet 16 tomorrow, and I don't believe D-Virgin is going to be a part of it, I'm afraid. Let me just double check and make sure that... Oh! Wait a second.
Wait, is somebody gonna upset Penasini?
Someone hacked the tournament. I hadn't checked, but every poll has about 450 votes. That one has 600 votes, and D Virgin is winning 53-47. 53. I'm not gonna tell anyone what they have to do, but I will say I will let the poll run through tonight until tomorrow morning. If anyone wants to try and change that, John Penasini could potentially be outed before the Sweet 16. Good.
Get him out of here.
Where's the link to the poll? No, it's in Pride of Detroit. There it is. You have to go to the website. So it doesn't work on the polls. Don't show up on every device, so you might have to pull it up on a browser on your computer if you don't see it on your phone. Now I have the conundrum whether I announce this on Twitter or not. If I just let it happen, because people are going to be mad if Penasini wins, which is kind of my goal, honestly, because it's been a little bit of a boring tournament so far. Throwing a little controversy into it, I think, makes it a lot more fun. No problem, LJ. Let John lose. Maybe I will. Maybe I'll just throw an alert late at 10:30, 11 tonight and see if anything changes. What was the lead? I have to. It was by how many votes? 325 to 283. So that's 42 votes. That's not easy to make up unless you have someone messing with the poll results. But this is what I've been waiting for. I know some people get mad when someone tampers with the results like that. I think it's fun. I think if anyone is that committed to changing the polls of a name bracket tournament, and let's be honest, it's a name bracket tournament. Let's not take it too seriously. I think if someone's willing to go through that to alter the results, then more credit to them. Too peaceful, if you ask me, Super Lightning Puggle. All right, let me pull up the mailbag questions before we jump in. You good to go, Ryan?
Yeah, I'm ready to rock.
Okay. All right, 1 second. Yeah, LJ, we'll get to your captain's question. I got you. Mailbag. Hashtag SPOD. Anytime y'all have a question for our mailbag, you want to do it today while you're listening for next week's episode, go ahead and do it. You want to do it right before we record on Monday nights? Great. I'll probably find it. But yeah, on Twitter, hashtag AskPOD, or wait for the AskPOD post on prideofdetroit.com, which usually happens on Friday afternoons. You can just throw in a comment there if you're part of our Pride of Detroit commenter team, our community over there. Also, I just want to do a quick shout out to those of you who've been giving us reviews and ratings on the PODcast on Apple Podcasts. That's where we kind of get the most play, and so your reviews do a big part in, rising us up the search results. And the reviews that we get that I really like, we'll read on stream. We don't have any prepared this week, but we'll get back into that to kind of give some love back to those of you who've given us some love. But with that, let's go to the mailbag. First question comes from Tyler Bostador on Twitter at Boss TEH Door. He has hashtag AskPD. Who's your most controversial dark horse to make the 53-man roster? Ryan, are you going to stick with Hunter Bryant? I think that's probably a good one for you, unless you got another one in the chamber.
Do you think that's a dark horse?
Yeah, absolutely I do.
Yeah. I don't know if he's a dark horse. I don't know if he's a dark horse just because he's coming in with so much. He's coming in with such a rub. He got signed pretty quickly. The Lions scooped him up. He had a little bit of excitement surrounding him just because he was, by all accounts, a guy that a lot of outlets said would be drafted, and then he ends up not getting drafted, and the Lions sign him. So
right.
I don't know if he's necessarily a dark horse, but I would say that he's my guy that I think will end up making the 53-man roster.
That's fair. I guess the one guy I'm going to say, and it's tough because I want to save some of it for next week. I think Tony McRae, the cornerback from the Bengals, is a guy to keep an eye on. And let me just make sure I get all of his information right. The
special teams value.
Yeah, that's it. Is the special teams value, and the Lions obviously brought in a new special teams coordinator from Cincinnati, so McRae is going to have a leg up there in terms of comfortability and all the teaching that Braden Coombs is going to bring in, and it's definitely going to be a tough route for him to make the roster given the depth that they have at that position. But he's just, to me, he's a guy that no one's really talking about, and he's a guy that, we've seen guys in the secondary surprise and come out of nowhere and make the team based on special teams alone. CJ Moore is a great example of that. Mike Ford to a lesser degree. And so I think McRae is a guy that's really going to come in with a leg up even on some of the guys that have been here for a couple of years just because of that special teams value that he brings with the special teams coordinator that's comfortable with him.
I like it.
All right. On the other end of the spectrum, our friend Jeff Risden asks, at Jeff Risden on Twitter if you don't know, he asks, which wildly inadequate UDFA becomes a cult hero, future All-Pro for the mouth-breathing section of fans this year? I'll hang up and listen.
Can I was going to say, can I just say Hunter Bryant again?
Hunter Bryant's probably not a terrible answer. Yeah, I don't know.
Does that make me a mouth breather?
Maybe. I think it does. I'm trying to look through this roster and find someone else, and the issue is that they have to be at a position where people care about, right? Like, maybe it's Aaron Sipos, the Aussie punter.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
But the problem is he absolutely could beat Jack Fox in the punter competition. I have no idea. And I don't know, do people care about backup fullbacks? We didn't talk about Luke Sellers, but he's a backup fullback. Again, I don't think people care enough about it. The thing is, they don't have an undrafted wide receiver or running back, which is what I think the people would really get, like a guy like Zach Zenner. That gets the people going because it's a running back. And I think the thing that's really going to hurt the mouth breathers this year, again, those are Jeff's words, not mine, is that there's no preseason. So there won't be that fourth quarter standout star that everyone's like, oh my God, did you see this guy? He got 5 sacks against an offensive lineman whose head was on backwards. Or, the running back that runs for 60 yards against linebackers who have 2 left feet. So with no guy to cling to based on their own eyes, I don't really know if there's going to be that guy this year.
I have one more name.
Hit me.
Steve Wordle. What if he ends up taking down?
Don't you dare bring up Long Snapper Watch 2020.
It's gonna be an actual watch. I'm kind of nervous.
No, it's not. Stop it. All right, next question comes from Billy Sims, made me do it over at our Pride of Detroit community. He asked, since conspiracy theories are popular right now, what's your most believable NFL conspiracy theories or cover-ups? And what's the most ridiculous NFL conspiracy theory? Are you a big conspiracy theory guy?
I'm not sure if we landed on the moon in the 60s, but...
Okay. So that you have an open mind, it sounds like.
I'm willing to be conspiracy theoried.
Do you believe in any NFL conspiracy theories?
How can you not believe in 2014?
For real?
Jeremy, the flag was on the field. And then it got picked up. And then they just pretended like it never happened.
Okay, so what's the conspiracy here? That the NFL was in the pocket of the Cowboys?
Wasn't the conspiracy like the refs were on like
the party bus?
Jerry Jones' son's bus or whatever?
Something like that. Or was it Pereira was on that bus or someone? I don't know. It was either
somebody
Pereira or Blandino or one of the group. Okay, but that falls apart all the next week, right? When the Cowboys lose on the Dez didn't catch it play. Didn't that happen literally the next week?
It did happen the next week, but it happened against Green Bay, who has even deeper pockets and is even. This goes all the way to the top, my friend.
It goes all the way to the top. That top is Aaron Rodgers, who lost the following week to the Seattle Seahawks in overtime. Are the Seahawks on the payroll? I mean, if the Seahawks are on the payroll, suddenly the bat and ball thing makes sense. Maybe we just blew this whole thing open.
I think that we're onto something here. I think the NFL wanted a new dynasty. I think that's why they punished the Seahawks in a way after they chose to not run the ball and throw it on the goal line. The Seahawks were supposed to be the next dynasty that would oust the Patriots because you know that the Patriots and Roger Goodell do not get along. Look, I think that we just blew the lid off this entire thing.
This is going to be our last podcast. They're going to shut us down.
I'm fearful for my life right now. Because you know who does their dirty work, right? I'm not going to say his name.
All right, our next question comes from Critical Perspective. He asked, I'm not going to read it word for word because it's kind of a complicated question, but basically he's asking, you can't count Jamal Agnew, but if you had to move one Lions player to a different position and they had to move completely, so they couldn't play a little bit of their old position, a little bit of their old new position, or a little bit of their new position, they're fully onto their new position, and they're a starter at the new position, who would you choose and where would you move them to?
Ooh, man, so I really want to take a backup from somewhere because I don't want to take anybody from the offensive line that could start because the Lions need those players.
Sure.
Boy, oh boy. How about we take Jared Davis and turn him into a fullback?
Jared Davis is your starting fullback.
Yeah, I think I like it. He's super athletic. He might not know where to block, but he's gonna do something.
He's gonna run right by the guy he's supposed to block and then just like turn around and do the little like sad Charlie Brown head down thing back into the huddle for the next play.
Well, either the next play or he'll be jogging to the sideline.
Man, this is a tough one. Maybe.
But don't the Lions get better if they subtract Jared Davis from the line?
Okay.
Oh, no, wait. Let's take Christian Jones and put him there.
Oh, man, it's going to be so fun talking about the linebackers next week. Can I just be cheap and do like Deandre Swift to the wide receiver position? Is that cheating?
Yeah, that's cheating.
But it's me being weird about running backs again. That's fun.
Do you think Bo Scarborough can play linebacker?
No.
Coward.
Yeah, I'm just going to have to leave that one at that. All right, fun one from TJW Go Blue. He asks, he doesn't even ask, he tells us, build me your perfect grilled cheese.
Do you have an answer for this?
Not off the bat. My initial thing is it has to be sourdough bread. That's my starting point.
Okay.
Do you want to fill in the rest here, or are you still thinking it over?
I have an answer because I've had a perfect grilled cheese.
Oh, okay. Let's hear it.
So it's French double cream brie with tomatoes and garlic on a baguette.
Oh my! Where did you get this?
It's from the Clarkston Union in downtown Clarkston. If you ever have an opportunity to try it, it is absolutely delicious.
Wow.
Sometimes I get it with a little like a balsamic drizzle on top too.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Here's my thing about grilled cheese and tomatoes though. Like I think I just prefer the tomato dipping into the tomato sauce rather than having a tomato on it.
So here is why because normally I hate tomatoes. Don't like tomatoes. I like tomatoes on this because it's an open face sandwich. There isn't a top part. It's just on a baguette. Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
So it doesn't get soggy or mushy, or it doesn't really affect the bread because it sits on top of the cheese.
Man,
you got to try.
I don't think I'm going to be able to top that answer, but here's where I'm going to lose some people is I do think there's room for blue cheese in a grilled cheese. Just to bring a little bit of funk to it. Like, I prefer the creamier, wetter cheese. I couldn't think of a better word than wetter because wetter does not sound appetizing. But the creamier, like, spread cheeses in a grilled cheese. But I want a little bit of funk too. So I think there's some room to improve it with just a dash of blue cheese. And I know there are a lot of blue cheese haters out there. And to me, I say, you're not fans of real cheese. Come at me.
You're not fans of real cheese, he says.
Pickles on grilled cheese is good, Dustin Whitehead from her chat? No. I will not allow that. I'm sorry. Let's move on. I'm offended. Brett Yoder from Twitter asked, #AskPOD, I couldn't care less about Madden ratings, but is Tracy Walker really this big of a secret nationally? That was a disgrace. To be fair, I think they overvalued our linebackers. For those that don't know, Tracy Walker was given a 77 on Madden 21, which was 45th among safeties. So definitely, I think, lower than what Lions fans have them as. Do you view that as a big slight, Ryan?
I think so, just because I think that's even a worse rating than he had the season prior. I think he was either a 78 or a 79 for last year's game. So yeah. I don't think that he got worse.
True. Probably true.
The Madden ratings are just an absolute mess. The whole game is a mess.
Yes. And I felt dirty even writing anything about it, but I did anyways because I know people like it. But I want to talk a little bit about Tracy Walker here because I think there's an assumption on Lions fans' part that this guy's already a Pro Bowler, and he's not there yet. And I think he has the potential to be. He certainly has the athleticism to be, but we really haven't seen it yet. We've seen flashes, but I'm not ready to put him in the conversation as a Pro Bowler or as a top, even as like a top 3 safety in the division. And so I think if there's really any overvaluing right now it's probably on the part of the Lions fans with Tracy Walker because they want to crown him before he's really accomplished anything significant in this league. And I do want to reiterate, I do think Walker is a very talented player that's very capable of making a Pro Bowl jump yet, but if you're EA, how could you possibly hand him that already? He hasn't really accomplished all that much, has he not?
Yeah, I totally agree with everything you just said.
Yeah.
He's got to earn it. And I just don't know necessarily how you earn it. Other than, and I think this happens with Madden a lot because the Buccaneers all of a sudden have just like a ton of like highly rated players.
Right.
But like you just need to become like a high profile successful team. Like if your team is good, everybody gets a ratings boost. So
yeah,
maybe that's what needs to happen for the Lions.
Yep. Don't disagree there. All right, we're going to throw it back to Critical Perspective, who had 2 good questions this week. He says, Sheila calls you and wants your help. As part of her deep dive into the organization, she decides to fire one, but not both, of Bob Quinn and Matt Patricia. She wants to know who goes and who stays. I feel like we weekly get a question about firing one or both of these guys, whether it's what do they have to do not to get fired this year, or if they go 5-11, will they both get fired? Will one of them get fired? Are they tied at the hip? This takes a little different angle on it. If you had to get rid of one, Ryan, who are you getting rid of?
So long, farewell, Avita, saying goodbye to Matt, Patricia. I will not even cry.
Yeah, that's got to be the answer, right? Like, I know Bob Quinn hasn't done a tremendous job drafting past, day 2 of the draft, and even some of his day 1 choices have been questionable at best. And as free agent has probably been even worse. But it's hard not to look at the mess that Matt Patricia has made of this team in the past 2 years and not view him as the bigger mistake.
Yeah. Yeah. Could you imagine Matt Patricia without Bob Quinn? What would that relationship be like between head coach and general manager?
Right. Who are you going to bring in to be the general manager?
Bill Belichick.
Oh, well, okay. Hold on. Maybe I'm changing my answer. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Matt Patricia, to me, there's just too many philosophical differences I have with Matt Patricia, both in terms of being a leader and in terms of some football strategy as well. And I'm not saying I know better than him, but I'm saying I know what I prefer, and what he brings to the team is not really necessarily what I prefer. Now, I do want to reiterate that I do think potentially Matt Patricia's plan could work, but it hasn't at all through 2 seasons, and I'm not super optimistic about everything coming together in year 3, but I'm hopeful. We'll see. That's all I got.
That's all I got. I just live. I sent you a picture of the grilled cheese.
Oh my goodness.
I know this is great podcast content, but
well, this is just a reason why if you're listening on a podcast platform, you should be watching live on our Twitch channel, because I'm about to show it to everybody that's watching live. Or if you can't watch us live Monday nights at 8 p.m., you can watch us on YouTube, as I mentioned at the top. Our YouTube channel will have this video right on there starting on Tuesday morning. And so here we go. There it is, chat. Now, that cheese on top is not melted?
Not really. Like just like lightly. Yeah.
Interesting. Do you remember what this little dressing thing is?
I think that's I want to say that's like a chutney.
Okay.
But I want to say it might even be for the salad that's with it.
I'll be honest. It doesn't look as good as I was hoping. But I do believe you that it's delicious.
Better. Oh yeah, it's just such a creamy cheese, like the brie.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Chad is arguing that that's not a grilled cheese because it's open faced and not melted cheese. But
oh my god,
it's being called too fancy for a grilled cheese.
Take one half and put it on top of the other one and eat it and shut up.
All right, our last question comes from our buddy LJB Ruff. We actually talked about this a little bit on our last broadcast, but after we stopped recording the POD cast, we were talking captains. And so we're going to split this question between weeks. Since this was an offensive themed podcast, the question is, who are going to be the 2020 captains on offense? And so the past 2 years, the trend has been 3 offensive captains, 3 defensive captains, 1 special teams captains. Let me read you the past captains on 2018 and 2019. 2018 was Stafford, Marvin Jones, TJ Lang. Last year, Matthew Stafford, Taylor Decker, Danny Amendola. So all 3 of those guys are back. Do you think all 3 of those guys retain their captainship in 2020?
No.
Ooh. Go on.
Matthew Stafford.
Uh-huh.
Taylor Decker.
Uh-huh.
Marvin Jones.
Ooh, he retains. He pulls it back.
I think he gets it back. I don't know why, but I think he's just going to be a good locker room guy this year.
That's interesting. I don't think I agree with you, but it's interesting.
Just a thought I had.
I think I'm probably sticking with the 3 from last year, Stafford, Decker, and Amendola. But I think there is a chance that Ragnow takes over for Decker.
Oh,
yeah,
that's spicy, and I like it.
I do like the steps that Ragnow, I think, is taking as a leader in that offensive line room. I do think they probably stick with quarterback, offensive line, wide receiver, and I don't view anyone in the running back core as potentially being a leader. No offense to that group quite yet. So if there's a change at wide receiver, I would actually probably put Kenny Galladay over Marvin Jones, but we'll see. He's kind of a quiet guy, so he might not be the captain personality. But yeah, I think if I were to change Stafford, Decker, Amendola, would be to Stafford, Ragnow, Amendola. But we'll see. I don't know. We'll see.
We should. I like that. I like Ragnow as a potential captain.
Yeah. All right, and with that, we are going to end the podcast. Thank you for listening. Again, as a reminder, you can catch us on YouTube now. Just go search Pride of Detroit on YouTube. You'll find our channel there. You'll have this episode with at least my beautiful face on it. Soon to be Ryan's once he gets his camera fixed. And all sorts of other stuff over there on our YouTube channel. As always, we're on our Twitch channel, twitch.tv/Pride of Detroit if you want to watch us live. And then if you prefer just listening to our voices, you don't want to see me, that's fine too. I don't take any offense to it. Any podcast platform, you'll find the Pride of Detroit podcast. Just search Pride of Detroit, which you've probably already done because you're listening to this elongated outro because I don't know how to end these shows. So I will just say, be kind. It's chaos. I said it backwards. I can't even do my own outro anymore. I'm bad at this. It's chaos. Be kind. We'll see you next week for the defensive training camp preview. Goodbye.
Truly channeling the adequate host.
All right. All right, chat.
Over.
What do we got? Something happened there. Oh, John subscribed. I forgot about that. John, I'm sorry I didn't say anything at the time. We kind of like to save all of our alert things at the end. So, John, if you're still here, thank you for the 3 months. We'll see you on Thursday, guys. If you don't know, John and I have been doing a sports show every week. We normally do them Tuesday nights at 8:30 p.m. We're both a little tied up tomorrow night, so we're going to move it to 8:30 on Thursday, where we'll talk about all sorts of fun sports stuff. We'll probably have a lot more to talk about with the NFL and all that fun stuff as well. So make sure you tune in. We do it right here live on Pride Detroit stream, also on his stream, Bearded Blevins. It's a lot of fun, and we're working on some maybe big stuff for the NFL season if everything comes together, both on the NFL side and our side. Don't want to say too much about that though. Also earlier, Panjack13, thank you for the follow. I don't know if you're still around, but if you are, thank you for following. Hopefully you enjoyed what you saw today. Ryan, what you got going on? How
what do I got going on?
How are things on your end, buddy? Do we get what's your leg update? Is it still broken?
My leg update. Well, no, that got fixed a couple weeks ago.
Oh, so it's not broken anymore? It's fixed?
It's not broken. It is currently healing. I start physical therapy on Thursday.
Nice.
I ran out of pain pills this weekend.
Not nice.
Not good. Not good, Bob. Not good.
Are you doing
so
all
that
right?
happened on Friday. And then, I'm making do.
Okay.
I'm making do. You know what? I got a good laugh because somebody sent me the Greg Jennings he broke his leg and he's doing
it.
Yep. Putting team on the back.
Yeah,
though.
you're gonna carry this. You're gonna put this podcast on your back.
Yeah. Yeah, that got a good laugh out of me. But yeah, leg update. I mean, nothing bad yet. So I got all my sutures taken out.
Okay.
I didn't. I mean, that was something that we talked about on the last or on Slack, but we didn't talk about in the last podcast. But all my like, I think I had like 60 stitches or something like that. Like all those got taken out.
Nice.
Not fun. I thought that maybe they would like numb my leg or something like that, but they didn't do that. So that was an interesting experience.
Are you the kind of person that needs to see it happening? Like you're morbidly fascinated with? Okay, you're the please put a towel over it or put a blindfold on me.
So I was like, I need to lay down because when they initially took off all my bandages and they took off all the tape that was covering over the scars, and over the stitches, the incisions, I was like, I got a little bit lightheaded. I was like, I just need to lay down. He was like, okay, yeah, that's totally cool. You can lay down. And then he's like, we're going to actually take out the sutures today. And I was like, okay, I'm going to stay in this position. And the guy, shout out Patrick for taking out my sutures, but he was an awesome guy. I like just held a conversation with him the entire time.
just to keep like your mind going, off of that happening.
Otherwise, not to be too silly, but like it totally would have been like Steve Carell in 40-Year-Old Virgin getting the chest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm the same way. When I give blood, luckily now because I give plasma or platelets. They let you watch Netflix for the 2.5 hours that it takes. So I'm just like, I'm laser focused on the Netflix when the needle is going in the arm, because I know there are people that like watching that sort of stuff, but I am not one of them. And I don't know if you've given blood, but the needles that they put in your arm are pretty big.
Yeah, no, I don't. I mean, thank you for doing that, because I think that I don't know. I actually don't know if I got any blood while I was in surgery. They made me like sign a bunch of documents about like if I authorized them like to like do any like blood transfusions.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I mean, they came into my room like at like 4:00 in the morning for every day that I was in the hospital to like take blood from me. And by like day 2 or 3, I was just like, whatever. Like I knew all the steps. I knew like that they would take the rubber thing and wrap it around my arm. And
right.
kind of like was starting to feel like a junkie.
Yeah, that stuff. Ooh. Yeah. Some of the things you were telling me about your accident, was just like, oh man. Nope. I
really wish, like, the thing that sucks is I've had like and this might just be like a little bit TMI, but like I keep on having nightmares about just looking down at my leg after the accident and seeing it. Like I can't just like think about it, but like when I have dreams, like I can picture it vividly, and it's just like,
dude,
it's terrible.
That sucks.
It's terrible.
Having dreams about that.
It's the worst. But I can laugh about it right now because I'm awake.
Yes, awake and alive. Oh man,
awake and alive.
Well, I'm glad that you're on your way to recovery.
Me too.
I hope the emotional part doesn't stay around too long.
I hope that I did this just to see Hunter Bryant make the team.
You mouth breather. Any other questions, Chad?
We gotta play some video games soon.
We do. What are we playing? Should we get back on?
I don't know.
Some Call of Duty.
I'll download Rocket League.
Okay, we'll do some Rocket League. I think we should get back into Call of Duty a little bit, because I see a ton of Lions players playing now. Like, I think we should try to get Tyler Crosby on here. He streams a little bit. Who else? Like,
that'd be cool.
Agnew, I think.
I saw Kerryon Johnson was talking trash to Slay.
He was. Yeah, we got to get all those guys on here. Problem is, like, it's probably too late now. But, you know, if the season goes sideways, we'll try to bring him on.
Got plenty of time
to LJ asked, do we get to hear the story on the car accident, or are we keeping that stuff under wraps? I saw the leg in the car, but not exactly what happened. No worries if you don't want to share. I'll leave that up to you. I know there's potential legal things happening, so I don't know if you want to talk about it publicly.
That's why I'm going to say I'll talk about it after I cash the check.
Fair enough. There you go.
Hopefully. Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna actually skedaddle if that's cool.
No, it seems like we're probably coming to an end. Didn't see the photos. I'm not gonna pull them up on stream, but you can see them probably on Ryan's Twitter account, Ryan_POD.
Yes.
I'll just throw his Twitter account.
Hi, Zazu.
What? Zazu behind me?
He just randomly like appeared over your right shoulder.
He's on the ground. You're lying. He's right down there.
No, like I could see his head. He like poked his head up.
There? On the ground?
Yeah.
Oh.
The ground. I could see it.
Weird. Yeah, I think we'll probably. What?
I know what I saw.
Okay. I'm sorry. You're hallucinating without your drugs.
Oh man. Maybe.
Oh, you know what? Before we close up shop, let's raid somebody. Who we want to raid, chat? Anyone out there worth raiding? And I think John just went live, and since he subbed to us, we should probably just pay it forward back to him. Oh, Ron Funches is on. I haven't watched Ron. Ron Funches is a really funny comedian, and he's super into video games, and he just started streaming, so I'm interested in watching him. But we're not going to raid him because he's a famous person. He doesn't need it. Oh, we could also do Miss Ruby, who is someone who is part of John's community and is very funny and has a very successful Twitch channel where she makes stuff. Which before I don't know if I'm gonna rate her or not, but the coolest thing she does is, you know how there's stream sniping in video games, right? Where people try to get in your game. She basically made up stream sniping for her, which is where she just makes food. And the way you stream snipe her is that you go through this program, you contact her moderator, and you send all of the ingredients for a recipe that you want her to make that she doesn't find out till midstream. So she's making something, and then you stream snipe her, and she has to make something completely different, which I think is really cool, interesting idea. So check out Miss Ruby if you're interested in finding more varied Twitch content. I think she's super funny. She's super nice. She's amazing. But for now, we're gonna raid John because he's great too. I don't know who that is. Oh, hey Amy, you caught us just at the end. I'm sorry. We're all gonna raid John, so we'll see you all over there. Please follow him. Please, if you don't know John already, he's amazing. He's a super kind guy. Big football fan, big Lions fan. He plays Fortnite. He plays a lot of Halo now. Just an overall great guy. One of my good friends that I met through Twitch. And so go hang out there and have a good time, because you will if you stay there. I don't know. I'm bad at endings, guys. I'm sorry. Ryan, do you have anything to say to make this less awkward?
This isn't goodbye. This is just I'll see you later.
Good enough. Good enough. All right. Everyone go raid John. We'll see you probably later. We'll do a video game stream maybe, unless there's a lot of Lions news, which there might be. I don't know. Go raid John. We'll see you at the very latest next Monday. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Watch Dexter. Or like, you know? Hey, Jeremy! Okay, I can't wait to check it out. Jamie, that sounds amazing. Thank you for the raid! Beard's Knife in the chat. Get some lions in the chat. Get some of those pride cheers in the chat. Thanks for the sub. If you didn't see me address it, thank you. I didn't because you were in the podcast, so I apologize. Who's on?